Good afternoon and welcome grantees of the Coverdell and DNA Capacity Enhancement for Backlog Reduction programs. My name is Andrea Borchardt and I'm a Senior Forensics Policy Advisor within the Bureau of Justice Assistance, or BJA. We're quite happy to have you here and appreciate the time you've taken from your schedules to attend this training webinar today. We chose to combine the webinar for these two grantee pools because there's a lot of overlap in the grant administrators for these two groups, and we hope to make the best use of your time. I'll now turn it over to one of your Just Grants trainers, Ms. Jennifer Jeffries, to discuss the webinar ground rules. Jennifer?
Great, thanks, Andrea. Welcome to today's session, and I'd like to begin by first orienting you all with the WebEx platform. This WebEx session allows participants to use the chat and Q&A functionality. Video has been disabled, and all participants are currently muted to limit background noise. Next slide. If you need technical assistance, please select the chat box to alert the host. If you cannot hear, click the arrow next to the mute and unmute icon. If you are still unable to hear, please dial into the meeting using the meeting invitation details. Next slide, please. During this presentation, we do encourage that you submit your questions via the WebEx Q&A functionality. On your screen, you may locate the WebEx Q&A box in the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx viewer. Please address your questions to all panelists in the Q&A box. By selecting all panelists with your submission, our team will be notified of your question. And this may be helpful for others to be able to see your question on the webinar. Lastly, we did receive a few questions before today's session that we will be addressing throughout the presentation. If we don't address your specific question, please feel free to add that to the Q&A box, and we will address it during one of our pauses for questions and answers. Now, I would like to turn it back over to Andrea to present our next few slides. Andrea?
Thank you, Jennifer. Before we get into the meat of our training today, I need to provide the DOJ disclaimer, essentially saying that any opinions stated today are those of the presenters and not necessarily those of DOJ. Next slide, please. Our agenda today will be to quickly give you a welcome, explain what BJA is, give you an introduction to the staff working to administer your funds, provide an overview of the CBER logic model, and then get into the bulk of the training today, which is to go over Just Grants and how to accept awards, submit progress reports, and submit GAMs. Next slide, please. I want to give everyone a warm welcome. We're very excited to have the Forensic Capacity programs here at BJA. As you may know, they were recently transferred from NIJ starting last fiscal year, approximately in March. So we're quite excited. We've finally built up our forensic unit within BJA, and we're very pleased to have you with our team. Next slide, please. As you all likely know, again, these programs were transferred from the National Institute of Justice to the Bureau of Justice Assistance. Since I think it's helped to orient oneself to the menagerie of government acronyms and agencies, this is an org chart of the Office of Justice Programs, or OJP. OJP is one component of the United States Department of Justice, and our mission within OJP is to increase public safety and improve the fair administration of justice in America. Within OJP, there are 6 main offices: BJA, the Bureau of Justice Statistics, National Institute of Justice, Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, Office for Victims of Crime, and the Office of Sex Offenders Sentencing, Monitoring, Apprehending, Registering, and Tracking, or the SMART office. Next slide, please. Within BJA, we strive to help make American communities safer by strengthening the nation's criminal justice system. With the transfer of the Forensic Capacity programs, we now have the forensic unit staffed with subject matter experts to help with these programs. Next slide, please. When an award is made within BJA, the administration of funds and monitoring of performance is managed by 3 main units: the Programs Office, the Policy Office, and the Performance Metrics team. Next slide, please. This is the BJA team that you will likely interact with, or some of you will interact with parts of this team on a daily basis when working on your award. First and foremost is the Programs Office, who works to administer your funds and ensure compliance with applicable law. These individuals on the top of the slide from left to right. Shalia Anderson is a retired naval officer who has about 5 years of grants management experience. Alan Spanbauer is the chief of the unit, who has 14 years of grants management experience. He's also a drug chemist and a published research toxicologist. Next is Christine Torres, who has 25 years of federal service. Monty Evans, who has 15 years of grants management experience. And Kathy Manning, who has over 10 years of grants management experience. One of the things that these folks want to make sure to stress to you is that while they are the ones you primarily interact with, there are also many layers of approvals needed for things like GAMs or the grant adjustments. So if you plan to submit any changes to your project, please ensure that you build in lead time for all the reviews and approvals needed to make in order to complete the GAM. I kind of liken it to my experience with admin and tech review in the lab. I may finish my report, but a bunch of people are still going to have to look at it before I can send it to the detective. The next on the slide is Michael Adams on the bottom row to the left, who represents the performance team, where they evaluate our performance metrics and help ensure that we have proper and measurable data with which to evaluate the effectiveness of our programs. And finally, in the policy office, we're forensic subject matter experts and help advise the programs team when they have questions about the solicitation, forensics, or any forensic laboratory medical examiner issues. We're on the bottom row next to Michael, and from left to right is me, Andrea Borchardt. I'm a forensic DNA analyst. Next is Lindsay DePalma, and then Vanessa Castellanos. They're both associates with Booz Allen Hamilton, and they've supported these programs for many years. Next slide, please. This is our contact slide. So it has our email addresses and phone numbers. I'll pause on this slide for a few seconds to give you guys an opportunity to get out your phones, take pictures, copy things down. This event is being recorded, so you can access this information later, but if you want something right away, I advise you to pull out your smartphones and take a picture. Okay, next slide, please. This is just to remind everyone of the purposes of each program. With Paul Coverdell, this is a congressionally legislated program aimed at improving the quality and timeliness of services at forensic labs, medical examiners' offices, and coroners' offices. This program has both a formula and a competitive component. And last year, we had more than 100 applicants for the approximately 4 million available in the competitive component. So it's not to say competitive too much, but it's highly competitive. Whereas the DNA Capacity Enhancement for Backlog Reduction program is aimed at improving the capacity of publicly funded labs, as well as on the processing of casework and database samples for entry into CODIS. We do plan to offer both these programs again this year in FY21 and are hopeful that they'll be released in the upcoming weeks. Please be sure to sign up for alerts on the BJA site to get notified when the new funding opportunities are released. Next slide, please. Something that is relatively new that we do want to make sure you are aware of is the DOJ interim policy for forensic genetic genealogy and searching, or FGG or FGGS. This is a DOJ policy that impacts anyone using federal funds to conduct FGG or FGGS. While we'll have limited to no impact on most of you, I strongly recommend you reach out to me prior to using funds for this purpose, so we can assure you're eligible to use the funding for this purpose under your program. You can talk through the policy and how you'll be complying with both it and with Section 9, the associated metrics reporting. There's a link to this, but if you search basically DOJ interim policy on forensic genetic genealogy, you should be able to find it on the DOJ website. Next slide, please. And for those of you who are receiving CBER funds, you may be interested to know that we recently developed a logic model for this program. I was thoroughly confused when we started this process, but with the help of the performance team, I was safely and successfully shepherded through this, and now I'm a very, very big fan of using these to help evaluate programs. So Michael Adams, I'll turn this over to him to tell you more about the process. Michael?
Thanks so much, Andrea, for the generous introduction. And thank you, everyone, for attending. I know I've probably spoken to some of you on the phone or email exchanges, as I've supported the program for quite some time. So to give you a background, first, I'm going to do a quick overview of the logic model. For future reference, there will be an email communication to all grantees of the CBER program for this logic model, and also an in-depth user guide on how you can utilize it. So first, how this came about. So based off the GAO report in 2019, there are a few principles and recommendations that BJA agreed to exercise. First, communicating the program-wide goals consistently to the grantee population, and two, establishing clear linkages between the program activities, performance measures, program-wide goals, and their respective quantitative goals or otherwise objectives. And of course, the logic model is a graphical representation of the relative relationships that laboratories have to meet their programmatic goals, aligning their objectives, outcomes, outputs in respect to their resources and allowable activities during their grant cycle. And of course, this is to visualize and analyze how the program is expected to work over the grant cycle. Next slide, please. So I'll keep it brief. Again, you'll have an in-depth user guide and your own personal copy sent to your agency, likely during the spring. I'll do a quick overview. Top left-hand corner, the needs statement. This essentially covers the matter at hand or the issue that the program is trying to solve. So in this particular case, untested DNA in laboratories. Top right-hand corner, program goals. This is essentially establishing the pathway to addressing the needs statement for the problem at hand and increasing capacity and significantly improving the amount of increased casework samples that can be analyzed at a laboratory or database samples at a database laboratory. Furthermore, in the furthest left corner, inputs, those are the various resources the laboratory has at its disposal. So that's staff, software, private vendors, moving over to activities. These are the allowable activities or the financial levers, if you will, that grantees can elect to utilize to reach their programmatic goals. Third column, outputs. These are measurable aspects of inputs used during their activities. So for example, a CODIS uploads, CODIS hits. Next to the outcomes, these are changes resulting from activities of the outputs for the program. And lastly, the furthest right-hand column, objectives, is the effort directed to achieve a strategic goal, or in this case, we already have outlined quantitative goals for the program that we worked on about 1.5 years ago. So that's my bit, and you'll receive communications from us very soon. Thank you so much, and I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
Great, thank you so much. So just before we get into our Just Grants portion of today's session, I do encourage and recommend that everyone use the Q&A box when you're submitting questions. We're getting a few private messages for questions, but we want to make sure that everyone on the call can see the questions, because if you have a question, someone else may very well likely have the same question. So we are tracking all of our questions in the Q&A text box. So that's certainly where we encourage you to submit your questions. Going to Just Grants here, the purpose of today's discussion is to learn more about Just Grants and address some of your questions that you may have. We want to ensure that you are off to a great start and have the tools that you need to utilize Just Grants. Let's go ahead and look at the agenda and talk a little bit about what we're covering today. We're covering award acceptance, grant award modifications, performance reporting, and then we'll provide you with some information about help. So on the screen here, you see the entity user roles slide, which outlines the 6 foundational roles that are available in Just Grants. At this point, you should have identified your authorized users for Just Grants. If you haven't identified your users, here are a few steps to keep in mind. Think about who will be working on your grants currently or in the future. As I mentioned, here are lists of all of the users that can be assigned in Just Grants. Once you have determined your list of individuals that you want to assign roles, you want to have your list and invite those individuals in Diamond and give each person an assigned role. Once you have added them to the system, let them know to be on the lookout for an invitation from the Diamond system so that they can go ahead and activate and begin setting up their account. We also created a user role matrix, which breaks down each of the roles as well as information of what they can do in the system. So we'll go ahead and provide a link to that particular matrix in the chat. We'll go ahead to the next slide. All right, so for award acceptance, let's review some important roles and processes in the award acceptance process. So the authorized representative is the only role that is able to accept or decline an award. It must be the person in your organization with the authority to enter into a legal agreement on behalf of the entity and bind the award and bind it to an award terms and conditions. The authorized representative is assigned at the application submission process. However, the entity administrator should verify the correct authorized representative to the award package in order to accept or decline the award. If the authorized representative has changed since the application was submitted, the entity administrator will need to take steps to reassign the correct authorized representative to the award prior to accepting or declining. This image shows steps that are taken that are important in the application and award acceptance process. Here you see the entity administrator and application submitter roles are created when submitting through JustGrants through grants.gov for the first time. The entity administrator needs to create and confirm the authorized representative so that the authorized representative can be included in the JustGrants application submission. If the application results in funding approval, the entity administrator needs to invite and register the financial manager and grant award administrator that will be responsible for funding the award. The authorized rep will then accept the award, and once the award has been accepted, you can invite other roles as necessary. So we're going to go ahead to our next demo to look at award acceptance. And I'll turn it over to Lisa to walk us through the award acceptance process. Lisa?
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you so much. Sorry about that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So I'd like to sort of start by orienting everyone to the JustGrants homepage, which is where you will all find JustGrants as soon as you log in. So before we get into award acceptance, I'd like you to notice on the left-hand side, there is a menu option, a list of menu options, starting with home and going through entity profile, entity users, entity documents, applications, awards, monitoring, and federal forms. So those are the general sort of areas in JustGrants that you'll be able to access. The home page, again, is where you'll start. And you'll notice at the top of the main portion of the screen that there is a section for alerts. Please do pay attention to these alerts because we do provide information about JustGrants, about changes to JustGrants, and about important deadlines there. So it's definitely worth your while to take a look at alerts. Right below alerts, you'll see My Work List. And this is a very important section as well because everything that you find on My Work List is assigned to you and only to you. So these are all the tasks that you will need to take action on. And the types of tasks that are assigned to you are determined, again, by the role that you have and also by the specific awards or applications to which you are specifically assigned. So I'm going to go ahead and start off here because I know we have some time elements to manage. So this particular demo, again, sort of walks you through the different sections of this menu. And I do encourage you to explore this menu as you can. Notice at the header, there's a little triangle there. That is a filter triangle. So it allows you to filter out a particular case type or case ID, case status, that sort of thing. We're looking for the accept, decline, award agreement. That status is the one that will locate any new awards that have yet to be accepted or declined. Again, as Jennifer mentioned, only the authorized representative assigned to this particular award is going to be able to do this function. JustGrants very much targets a particular person to manage a particular task on a particular award. So you have to be both assigned the role authorized representative as well as be assigned specifically to this award. So once you open up this award package to take a look at it in order to accept it, you're going to see a number of different sections in here. And each section is going to have to be reviewed and accepted separately. So here is the acceptance, the introduction letter. The content of that will be displayed. And directly below that, you see a little checkbox with the remarks, I have read and understand the information presented. You have to select that in order to accept that section. The next section is award information. You'll see recipient information, the award type, the award number, et cetera. Again, that section is accepted separately. Then you have the project information where you have the solicitation and title and application number. again, accepted separately. And then the financial information. If there is an OCFO letter, the content of that will be displayed as well. So none of these are editable here. You go ahead and just accept this section. Following that is a section for award conditions, and there will be, typically there are going to be more than 40, and each one should be reviewed, but you will accept the entire package of award conditions as one. So we're going to take some time here to scroll down through these award conditions. And again, I should note that this is not a real real information. This is taken from our testing database, so this is all sort of you know, artificial information. But the award conditions, the way it's displayed, is correct. So again, we'll continue on. Like I said, there are typically more than 40, and we're looking at the 30s right now. I'm going to move through. And at the very bottom of this, we're coming there shortly, there will be a single check mark to accept all of these award conditions. Notice right below the list, there's a little load more, so there really actually are more award conditions on this that are not displayed, but we're going to go ahead and check this box because we've taken care of all of that. So then finally, we have the acceptance and electronic signature section. Once you check that, the system understands who you are, and they will, the system will automatically enter your title, your name, and the date and time stamp that this was certified. So really, this is the process to accept an award. Again, the authorized representative is the person to do this. We'll just move on the last little bit here. And at the very bottom, you're going to have 3 buttons that we'll roll down to here in a moment. One of those buttons is the cancel button, which will remove any edits that you've made to this document and return you back to the home page. You will also have the opportunity to either accept or decline this award. And we're rolling down here shortly. The demo is taking longer. There we go. So notice down here we have the decline button or the accept button. If you do decide to decline this award, then we ask that you provide a justification for declining the award and attach any documentation that you feel might be necessary for that. But we're not going to decline. We're going to go ahead and accept the award. And there we are. We're going to accept. And now once we've accepted this award, you'll see that it's a pending account creation. So in this particular instance, it is ready to go as a funded award, although there still are a couple of steps that were not completed for the account creation. Typically, if you see something like that, it may mean that you might need to assign additional people to the award. At this point, you would assign a financial manager, a grant award administrator, and also if, for instance, you are new to Just Grants, you may need to set up an ASAP account for drawing down funds. But essentially, this award is open and ready for work. So I'll turn this back over to Jennifer, and we'll see if there are any questions.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. Yes, we do have one specific question around printing capabilities. Are you able to print out the award or any of the award conditions for approval purposes if you need to?
At this time, no. The printing capability for Just Grants is being built in several areas. It is available in a couple of areas, but it is not yet available in others. So the ability to print is not yet available for the award acceptance piece or the award conditions. Now, if you need to have someone else approve it, I think that one of the best options may be to provide that person access to Just Grants assign them the role authorized administrator, and they can go in and review the award conditions as needed.
Okay, great. Thank you. That looks like that's the only question we have around award acceptance, so I think we can get into our next topic.
Hey, Jen, I actually, if we could just address this last question that just came in, it says, did this part change because I was able to print the award and conditions in December? So Lisa, I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, that one I would, I'm not aware of the fact that you're able to print the award and award conditions. So I can do some research on that and see if that has changed or if that is a capability that I haven't been made aware of yet. So I'll take that question back and I'll provide it to Andrea and her team, and we can make sure that we get that information to you.
Yeah, and Lisa, for further clarification, I'm wondering, depending on your browser, you can click on the browser will have an option to print, and so I believe you may be able to do it that way, but there's not a print feature within the app for award acceptance at this time, correct?
I believe that's correct.
Awesome,
Yeah,
thank you.
But I'll follow up on that and get a definitive answer from our technical team.
Great. I'm not seeing any additional questions for award packages. I'm going to go ahead and move into grant award modifications, and please continue to provide those questions in our Q&A text box. It looks like you all are doing a great job of entering those there, so we encourage you to continue to add those questions that you may have. So again, it's created to update the award details, but it is used only to modify key facts or details about the award. There are 3 types of GAMs. You have the project period extension GAM, programmatic GAMs, and financial GAMs. On the screen, you also can see the individuals that can initiate the GAMs, and that consists of your grant manager as well as you all's grantees. A project period extension GAM is used to extend the project period. A programmatic GAM is used to update changes in the project scope or to gain prior approval for changes with programmatic costs and activities as determined by the DOJ Financial Guide. Financial GAMs are used to modify budget details or approve a budget that received a conditional clearance when awarded. As you see here under the financial GAMs, there are 3 types of financial GAMs: the budget reduction GAM, budget modification GAM, and sole source. You'll notice the very last GAM, budget clearance GAM, is initiated by financial staff, and that's typically internal DOJ staff, but with OCFO, so that would not be for grantees to initiate. Users can enter information in the GAM, they can save it, and you can return at any point to complete and submit. Once a GAM is submitted, DOJ reviews it, and they'll send a notification whether it's been approved or denied. We'll go to the next slide and just talk about a few updates and highlights here. So again, the purpose is just to update award details. GAMs are used to only modify those key details about the award. They're limited to updates or changes to award details, not to confirm compliance requirements. And a user, you can delete them before submitting. So those are just a few things to keep in mind. On the next screen, here are a few things that are no longer processed as GAMs. Before, an entity would use a GAM to change the grant award administrator or the authorized representative. Now, entities will manage their own users and entity information in Diamond. Also, entities used to have to process a GAM to release a hold on funds, and now this happens in a different area of JustGrants without needing a GAM. So we'll leave this up for just a few moments, and then I'll turn it back over to Lisa for a demonstration of how to initiate a general process steps for GAMs, and then I will go and look at the budget modification GAM.
All right, Jennifer, thank you. We'll go ahead and take a look at GAMS. I know we had a lot of questions on GAMS. So the first thing I'd like to do is show you all where to go and how to initiate any one of the types of GAMS. Then the second demo that I have is walking you through a budget modification GAM specifically. We only really have time for one. You know, we could probably take a couple of hours and do them all, but we'll walk through one just sort of as an example. But we do have training materials, videos, and step-by-step instructions on our training website for every type of GAM. So one of the things that I want to talk about first is one of the biggest questions we get is, I want to make a GAM, but the GAM selection field is grayed out. So this is going to be due to one of a couple of issues. First of all, if you look above in the header, you see that we have a lot of information about the award in the header: solicitation title, project title, start and end date, managing office, and grant manager. And right below that, you have a field that displays the grant award administrator. That is the person. And if there is an alternate grant award administrator assigned to this award specifically, those two people can initiate a GAM, nobody else. So if anyone else is logging in trying to initiate a GAM, they are never going to be able to get an active field there. That's one of the things that has been happening. So it's got to be that grant award administrator initiating the GAM or the alternate. The second thing that happens is that has sort of two different views. Almost every time you log into an award, if you log in, for instance, to the awards from the menu option on the left, awards, that will, by default, open the award in read-only mode. That awards list on the left-hand side is intended for anyone who has access to Just Grants awards to be able to open and view an award. But the person who's listed as the grant award administrator on the award is ever going to be able to edit anything within the award. One of the best ways to access your award is to log in from the home page and your My Work list. And when you log in that way, it will automatically open in edit mode. If you are working with an award and you do log in from the awards menu, the first thing that you're going to be presented is a list of tasks of different sorts, everything from a programmatic task to a performance report to a financial report. And if you are the grant award administrator on that award, you will see a begin link with the programmatic task. You must click that begin link on the programmatic task in order to be able to edit anything within the award. So we find that we know that that's not very intuitive, and we've had a lot of questions about that. But if you ever can't edit an award, look for the begin link on the programmatic line, and that will allow you to open and access the award. Once you are in edit mode, you'll see that you notice that the award package that we had previously, this was a question that came in initially, the award package that we had previously had a list of different sections that needed to be accepted. The application itself that was submitted earlier had a number of different sections. Once you have an award, you have different sections of the award that you're going to manage that are very different from what you had in the application. So in the award itself, you have on the left the award package. And if you click that header, you'll see everything that was accepted by the authorized representative when they accepted the award. Secondly, once the award's accepted, all of the award conditions appear in a list under the Award Conditions tab. And when you look at that list, you'll be able to see all of the various award conditions that were agreed to, and you'll be able to see if they're all in compliance. Each one is listed as being in compliance or not in compliance. The Award Details tab on the next header over displays information that was in the package that was accepted as award details. In the Performance Management tab, all of your performance reports are going to be listed, those that have been already completed and those that are still needing to be completed. The funding balance and availability will show how much of your funding has been drawn down, and it will show if there are any withholding or suspension amounts on the award. The Federal Financial Report tab will display all of the federal financial reports, again, the ones that have been completed, as well as the ones that are due. The Grant Award Modification tab that we have here, this is where you'll be able to both create and see all of the grant award modifications that are either in progress or have been completed. If there's been any monitoring issues or requests, you'll see those on the monitoring tab. And then closeout, if you want to initiate closeout early, you can do that there. But that having been said, that was the question that came in early, so I wanted to make sure everybody understood those different tabs. So I'm going to go ahead and set in motion this demo, and we're going to initiate a GAM. So the different types of GAMs, as Jennifer mentioned, we have 3 different sort of categories of GAMs, and that's what you're going to select first in this GAM selection drop-down menu. And the demo will move forward here shortly. So there we are, the financial, programmatic, and project period extension. If you select the financial, you get a subtype drop-down that allows you to select one of the 3 subtypes, the budget modification, budget reduction, et cetera. If we go to the programmatic GAM type, you'll be able to select the programmatic costs or scope change. And finally, if you go to the project period extension GAM, there are no subtypes. You just, by creating a GAM, be able to go ahead and open up a project period extension GAM. Now, one of the things that you need to know about this particular type of GAM is that if you're trying to extend your project period within 30 days of the project period end date, you'll need to contact your DOJ grant manager because they will have to do that for you. Prior to the 30 days before your project period end date, you will be able to initiate this GAM. All right, so that is GAM initiation. And now we're going to go through and we're going to walk through the process of initiating and completing or submitting a budget modification GAM. And this is one of the types that we have. We do have instructions on all types on our page. So the budget modification GAM is the financial GAM. We'll select that. And then under subtype, we'll go ahead and select budget modification. And once you have a type and subtype, you notice the Create New GAM button becomes blue. We'll click that, and it opens up, it's going to open up the budget modification GAM fields. So here we are. In the budget modification GAM, you see on the left the approved budget, which is not editable. That is what is currently listed in your award as being approved. But on the right, the revised budget is where you will enter the total amount that you would like that budget category to become. And in the center, requested changes, notice that Just Grants actually makes that calculation for you. So here we're just going to move $5,000 from other costs into procurement contracts. And that's the only change we're going to make here. But notice the other changes you can make. In the center of the page, you see a little link next to the listing for guidance. See the DOJ Financial Guide, and that link will open up that particular section of the DOJ Financial Guide that applies to the budget modification GAM. You'll enter a justification for this GAM. You can also upload an indirect cost rate agreement if that applies to this process for you. And then below, you see we have the option to upload other financial GAM documentation as needed, and then you just upload the document from your workstation or shared drive. You can open up grant management comments, and these are comments that you might want to provide for your grant manager in order to sort of communicate with that, with them about that. So this will refresh here in a moment. I'll try and move this forward to, there we go. All right, so that will refresh here in a moment, and we will roll down here a bit. All right, we'll keep going. So once you have actually entered comments for your grant manager, they appear below. So let me just scroll down a bit. One of the things you'll find is that whenever you save something, you're always returned to the top of the screen and you have to roll back down to get to where you were. So that's just something that we work with in Just Grants for now. And now here, there are the grant management comments again. You just add your comment in there for the grant manager and then click the add button, and that will then become part of the, there we go. Sorry, that moved a little too fast. So I'm going to stop this for a moment. At the bottom, you have a cancel button. So if you decide that you don't want to complete the GAM right now and you want to just exit out without making any changes, you can do that. It will maintain the GAM structure. However, you will essentially have already initiated a GAM. It will just be empty. If you choose right now to delete the GAM, then you can delete that GAM and it will still remain within your record, but it will remain as deleted and resolved. You can save the GAM and come back at a later time, or you can use the button to submit. And that, I believe, is what we did here in our demo, is submit the GAM. So we'll go ahead and do that. And I'll want to just point out one more thing. Once you've submitted a GAM, notice the little purple box up here at the top. It says pending approval. That's the status of this GAM. It has gone off to your grant manager for approval this time. And that is the process of submitting a GAM. So Jennifer, I'll turn this back over to you so you can talk a little bit about the review and approval process now that we've submitted our GAM.
Thanks, Lisa. So once a GAM has been submitted, it's sent off to your grant manager for approval. If the grant manager approves the GAM, it is then sent forward through an internal review process. The internal review varies based on the type of GAM and the managing office, so keep that in mind. If the GAM status changes during the internal review process, both you and your grant manager will receive notifications. Once a GAM has been approved, it is sent to the financial system and or ASAP to update the award information. At this point, it can take up to 24 hours to update your funded award with the financial information. So there's a lot of information. So let's see if we have any questions in the Q&A text box. And I know that I saw some coming in. So I'll start with this first question here. How long does it take to actually get your GAM approved or have a GAM approved for grantees? Could we answer that question?
I'm going to see if someone from the program office may answer that question. That's really outside of the Just Grants system question.
And you may be on mute or have to take yourself off of mute.
This is Cindy. I can answer it because it was answered in the chat. So it should, it can vary depending on the type of GAM, whether corrections are needed, etc. I would plan for it to take 3 to 4 weeks. If a GAM is rejected, I believe the system will let you resubmit another GAM once this one is fully rejected.
Okay, great. Thank you. And can you talk a little bit about the difference between a programmatic cost GAM and budget modification GAM?
Again, this is not so much a Just Grants question. The one thing that I can add to this is that a budget modification GAM allows you to modify the actual figures on your budget. The programmatic cost GAM is something that's a little bit more program specific, but the budget modification GAM will allow you to update your actual budget figures.
This is Kathy Manning. I'd like to chime in on that, if I may. Just to add that Just Grants treats GAMs a little differently than GMS did. So for formula awards, we are largely not doing the financial budget modification GAMs anymore because formula awards don't receive a final budget clearance from OCFO. So I know some of you have tried to complete a budget GAM and gotten an error message. So if you're not sure what type of GAM you're supposed to be doing, I recommend that you reach out to your grant manager first. Just send an email to make sure the GAM is needed and what type it should be. But the advice or recommendation for type of GAM that you're doing may be different than what you were told to do in GMS because Just Grants does take a different approach.
Great, thanks, Kathy. Are we able to print GAMs from JustGrants?
At this time, I don't believe that you are. Again, if, I don't believe that JustGrants has that print capability. However, you might try to use your browser print, as Cindy mentioned earlier. And if that fails, you can always do a screenshot and print that. But I believe right now there is no print capability in GAMS.
Okay, great. And can you speak a little bit more about the roles that can actually submit GAMs? We have an individual where they're the authorized representative and they can submit a GAM. Their application submitter and grant award administrator cannot. So could you talk a little bit about who can submit GAMs in as a JustGrants user versus someone who cannot?
Yes, I can talk a little bit about this. There has been so much confusion around this particular question. So a couple of things about the roles. The way that JustGrants is designed and developed, only the grant award administrator is able to submit a GAM. The alternate grant award administrator can initiate a GAM and can make entries in a GAM but cannot submit. So this is the way that JustGrants is designed. Now, I know that we have had recently some glitches in how our roles have been able to perform within JustGrants. This has actually not helped the confusion, but added to it. So I can give you what JustGrants is intended to be doing. If you're seeing anything other than that, it is a glitch and will most likely be corrected at some point. So while there might be an application submitter, an authorized representative, a financial manager, they might be assigned to that award, but they should not be able to initiate or submit GAMs. Only that grant award administrator and alternate can initiate, and only the grant award administrator should be able to submit. So again, if you're seeing something else, that is a technical issue that should be reported to our technical support team.
Okay, great. Let's see. Will the ability to print GAMs be coming out soon? A popular one about printing.
I know that this print question is a hot topic, and I know that our development team is really working on print capability, various aspects of JustGrants. So while we may not have the print capability now, I know that they are looking into solutions for printing not only in GAMS, but also in other aspects of JustGrants. So again, JustGrants, when it was launched sort of as sort of a platform on which they're going to continue to build and add features and functionality over time. So expect that if you don't have it now, it will, it is being considered, and the timeline for development for all of these things just varies based on our resources.
Okay,
Thanks,
great.
Lisa. This is Cindy, and if I could just add to that, so that answer kind of answers two questions that we're seeing. One about print functionality, but also about roles. So there's a question about, will an alternate financial manager be added? This could be eventually added. What we encourage users to do is just make sure that you're signed up for like the news and updates. And so when these new features are available, you'll receive those notifications and you'll know what features are coming out as they are released.
Great. And it looks like we have one more question about supporting documentation. What type of supporting documentation should it be attached within the GAM? Could we have maybe someone from the program office speak to that question?
Hi, this is Kathy. I can take that. I think I heard that the question is about what type of supporting documentation to attach to a GAM. Yes, the answer would vary a little bit depending on the specific circumstances. And so some of you will see I've been typing in the Q&A, consult with your grant manager about your specifics. So I want to offer that as my disclaimer. Your specific situation might be more detailed than I'm able to address right here. But in general, I would recommend, number one, a document that summarizes the changes you're proposing in the GAM. This can, be a paragraph or a couple of paragraphs that says why you're doing the GAM. Second, if there is any change to your approved goals and objectives on the award, you would need to update those goals and objectives. So the first is sort of just a quick overview summary document of what's changing with the GAM and why. The second is the more formal, hey, we're changing our official approved goals and objectives. And third, if there are any budgetary changes, an updated revised budget detail worksheet. And the revised budget worksheet should still total the entire award amount. You wouldn't want to submit a budget worksheet that only addresses what's changing. Your budget worksheet always needs to total your exact final award amount. So I hope that's helpful, but again, please reach out to your grant manager with specific questions about what's needed for your specific GAM situation.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kathy. I think those cover all of our GAM questions for now. So we can go and look at our next topic on performance reporting. So let's
Sorry,
take a look at
Jennifer. I
okay.
just have one more that I'd like to see if Lisa can clarify for us so that
Sure.
People have this information. So there was a question, why is every function, for example, a progress report, award, app submission, etc., given a different ID number that doesn't correspond to other functions of the actual award number? You have to click each one every single time to find the info for, do you have to click each one every single time to find info for a particular grant? So can you speak to maybe like the search features, Lisa, in JustGrants and how and what connects each of these different functions to all one award and then the award to one entity and how they could possibly use the search feature to help?
Sure. The award itself, the award record itself is very complex because while the award record contains information that comes from, your entity organization, it contains the people who are assigned to that award. It also contains within it, it's really sort of a large wrapper that contains within it other individual records. So each performance report is its own record within a larger award. So while that award has a number, each performance report has its own number so that it is differentiated from all of the other reports within that award. So that's what you're seeing. When you see the performance report on your work list, you see that it has its own number, and that number is automatically associated behind the scenes with the larger award. Now I can go back, and I'm gonna go back and just show the home page here for a moment because it will help you to see how you can associate that. So one of the things that you're looking at here, F, is a financial report. You can see the due date and all of that. If you click this little caret, which I can't do because this is actually just a video, it will open up and show you which award it's assigned to. So again, all of the little individual case IDs that are visible here on your work list are actually part of a larger award. But in order to track them separately and have them go through the approval process separately and have them be resolved separately, they all each have their own individual numbers. So that's really sort of in a nutshell why you have so many different sort of numbers, is that each task has its own ID number. Did that answer the question?
I hope so. I think so, Lisa. That gives a lot of clarity, and you walk back through the steps that I was hoping they'd be able to see so that they could have that.
Okay, great.
Okay, let's go ahead and move forward to performance reporting and the process that you'll go through for performance reporting. Okay, perfect. So on the screen, you'll see this table highlights general, quarterly, semi-annual, and annual calendar dates for performance reporting throughout the grant award lifecycle. This provides you with a general schedule for performance report frequency and due dates. We'll leave this up for just a few moments so that you can orient yourself with those dates. If you'd like to take a picture, as Andrea mentioned, you can take a quick snapshot, but please note that a recording of this webinar will be available after today's session at a later date to download. So don't worry if you are not able to get a screenshot or a picture during the presentation. And next up, I'll turn it over to Lisa for a demo of how to complete and upload performance reports in JustGrants. Lisa?
Hi, thank you, Jennifer. So there are two different ways that performance reports can be submitted. And I understand within the group that we have online today, some of you are entering your performance report data into PMT. And if you are within that group, you're going to want to pay attention to the first half of this demo, because in JustGrants, you'll need to upload the PDF report that you create in PMT into JustGrants and submit it from there. So I'm going to show the first half of the demo is going to be for those of you who use PMT. The second half of the demo is going to be for those of you who are using question sets within JustGrants. So this is actually, while this is one demo, it's actually for two completely different processes. So we'll go ahead and start here. And again, this is for those folks who are going to be uploading a PMT generated PDF file. So again, from the My Work list, you'll open the performance report, which begins with a PR. You can see the due date. You can see the urgency. How many days is it due? Is it past due? And you can see that one day past due, this becomes a delinquent report, and you don't want that. Currently, it should be noted that currently, due to early issues with JustGrants and early issues with the performance reports, there is no financial impact to having a delinquent report. And until these issues are fixed, I don't know the date at which that will be a factor again. But right now, even though your case status is delinquent, you are not having funds withheld for late reports. So we're going to go ahead and wait for the demo to go ahead and select the performance report. When you open the performance report, and again, this is for uploading a PMT report, you'll see the header for the report, and the associated award information is at the very top. You'll see that it defaults to a regular report. It will default to a final report only if it is actually the final report for your award based on the award, the project start and end dates. Again, you can see the start date, the end date, and the due date for this particular performance report. If you are closing your award early and you need to change this from a regular to a final report, you can click that final button. And you have a pretty serious message here that tells you if you do this, you can't go back. So you do need to confirm that you are changing this to a final performance report. We're not going to do that today. We'll cancel that. You'll see if you're uploading a PMT report, there's a question set section there, and it should be empty. The question sets will not appear for you there. But the next demonstration will show you how to deal with the question sets. There's a comments field, and you'll be able to enter comments regarding this performance report that are visible to your grant manager and anyone else at D&J who's able to see this performance report. So we'll go ahead and type this. The save button for the comments is actually the save button for the performance report record itself, which is at the bottom of the screen. And once we finish typing in here, we'll scroll down and find that save button at the bottom. So we'll need to do that in order to save that comment. And again, every time you hit save, at least for now, JustGrants will roll you all the way to start at the top of the record again. So you have to scroll back down. Now you can see that that comment appears here. And you can also, this is where you'll upload your PMT file. Again, you want to upload the PDF form of this, not the Excel version, the PDF form. It's what JustGrants reads best. Once you upload it, you are able to change the name of the file if you like. You can only have one file with a particular name, so you'll need to, if you have multiple files that you can upload multiple files, but you're going to need to name them something different. So whether it's adding an A, a B, a C at the end, whatever you need to do, you cannot have two files with the exact same name. So that's how you would go ahead and upload that report. It's very straightforward. Again, upload as many files as necessary. Just make sure they have a different name. And do please make sure that the category is performance report for all of those. The category should be performance report. At the bottom, you can cancel, you can save and come back to submit, or you can go ahead and submit this performance report. And that's what we're going to do. And now we see that we've submitted this, and it has gone off for approval. So that is for those of you who use PMT to generate your reports. The next portion of this demo is going to walk through how you would submit a performance report if you actually have a question set embedded in the performance report. And so we'll launch that here in a moment. And while we're looking at this, yeah, there we go. We're going to go ahead and launch this. So now this one is a little bit different because if you notice, there's a question set link here in the question set section. So that's going to be our first place to go, is to click that link to open the question set. And there we go. Sometimes this moves a little slower than I talk. Sometimes it moves a little faster than I talk, but we should be able to open that here shortly. And I want to make sure that once we open this, that we stop and take a quick look, because there's something very important that you're going to need to see here. And that is, once you open this question set, you see this little begin button here. And again, this is another aspect of JustGrants, that is the question set will be view only. If you were to be able to see it, the question set would be view only until you click this begin button. So the demo is going to go ahead and click the begin button. Actually, before it does, it's going to display all of the questions. These are the empty questions here for the question set. Now, again, you can, if you want to print these out, you're welcome to do that using the browser print, or you can use screenshots to capture this information. But I don't believe the performance report actually has print capability just yet. So we're going to go ahead and click this begin button. And once we do, we see all of the performance report questions here in an editable mode. Now, the performance report questions are going to change from award to award based on the solicitation requirements. So what I'm showing you here is really sort of just an example of different types of questions and how to use them. So at the top, the first two are radio buttons. That means you can only make one selection. Right below that, we have checkboxes, which means you can select multiple in that section. So the checkboxes just allow you to have a multi-select. You can use the bottom right corner, the continue button, to move to the next page, or you can use the header at the top. You see we're on 2BJA_stop. And notice that in this case, as we enter information in one field, it displays additional fields for us to populate. So this capability, you might find that in your performance reports as well. We'll go to the third page here, and we're going to, I think in this case, we click the little header at the top for 3. And again, here we have drop-down menus and all sorts of, other different types of questions here that we're answering. And so I'm going to kind of move forward because I think we've pretty much seen their kind of standard questions that we have moving forward. And I believe this one goes off the rails here for a moment. All right, so here we are on the second to last page for this particular performance report. And we'll continue on and finally move to the last. Now notice the little continue button on the very last page no longer says continue, it says finish. And it's important to understand that finish does not mean submit. We're going to submit this report elsewhere. Finish just indicates that you're finished with answering these questions. Notice at the end of most of these questions, a little red asterisk, that's the indicator for a required field. So everything with an asterisk is a required field. In these larger text boxes, you can either type or copy and paste your information in here. So if you've prepared your performance report elsewhere, you can use the copy and paste function to put your answers in there. So again, now that we've finished entering all our questions, we are going to click Finish. And then I'll show you how to submit, which is a separate step. Okay, so then we click Finish. And once we do that, it's going to display that same list of questions again, but with the answers included. So again, if you want to print this out, the print capability, you see the little print option here, but I think a lot of people have discovered that that will only print the page you're looking at. So you might want to use your browser to print, or again, if that doesn't work, you can just take screenshots of the questions and print those. And again, the print capability is still being worked on. So now here, I want you to notice that we have come back to the original performance report screen. One of the things that you want to do at this point is go up to the Actions menu and use the Refresh option. And that's what we did there. Now that we've refreshed, we actually have the performance report is here, the status is here, and you see this reopen button. If you need to reopen it at this point prior to submission, it's very easy to do. You can reopen and you can adjust any questions and answers that you might have. You can reopen a progress report after you've submitted it, but of course it's always easier to reopen it, from prior to submission. Again, you have the option to add comments. You have the option to upload additional performance report documentation, and then now we're going to submit. When you click Submit at the bottom of this screen, now it's submitted, and as you can see at the top, the status has changed to pending review, meaning that it's at the Department of Justice for review. So Jennifer, would you like to talk a little bit about the approval process?
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, so once your performance report has been submitted, it'll be routed to your grant manager. The grant manager or reviewer only has the option to approve the performance report. Currently, there is no way to change request a performance report in JustGrants, so your grant manager will communicate with you via email if additional information is requested. The grant manager will then upload any additional information provided by the grant award administrator. Once all additional information has been provided by the grant manager or reviewer, once all information has been provided, the grant manager or reviewer will approve the performance report, and that will show in your system that it's been approved, and it will continue through the DOJ internal review and approval process. Let's go to the next slide and look at deliverables. So deliverables are found in the Performance Report tab in the funded awards. They are sorted by category type to be sure that the attachments are associated with the correct functions and JustGrants. There are deliverable categories consistent of monitoring issues, GAMs, and performance reports. So just think when you're selecting what attachments to include, make sure you're selecting the right deliverable categories. Okay, to upload a document to JustGrants, you're going to navigate to the Performance Management tab in the Funded Award and use the Add Attach button in the Deliverable section to begin. Enter and drag the file into the system. or either you can locate it from your device. Once the attachment has been located, select the Open button. Select the deliverable category and enter a comment indicating the nature of the deliverable. If it applies to the performance report or it's in response to a monitoring issue, be sure to provide information indicating to which issue or performance report the deliverable is associated with. Award compliance deliverables have a separate category, and that comment should reflect the condition to which it is associated. Once the deliverable has been uploaded, it appears in the deliverable section with a link to open the document. All users with access to the funded award are able to view the deliverables. This applies to the users within your organization as well as your grant manager and other DOJ personnel that are part of the review and approval process. So I know that there were a lot of questions about performance reports, and I wanted to kind of pose those to the group here. So we did have a few folks ask about the pending status. They've submitted their progress report. Can you speak a little bit about pending status and they're not able to move forward in Just Grants, Lisa?
Sure, I can. The word pending is applied to virtually every status, and you can almost always ignore the word pending. You might have pending active, you might have pending review, you might have pending initiate closeout. These are all different statuses in Just Grants, and for some reason, the system places the word pending at the beginning. So, in other words, the word pending can be ignored. What's important is what comes after that. Not knowing what that next word is, it can be difficult to address that question, but pay attention to the word that comes after pending.
Okay, great. Okay, let's see. We spoke a little bit about the change requested process. Can you just reiterate that, Lisa, that currently if you have to make any changes to your performance report, how would you go about doing that with your grant manager?
So because currently there's no change request process in the performance report section, then all of that sort of has to be handled outside of Just Grants. Typically, the best way to handle that would be for you to exchange emails with what the updated information is that might be necessary, and then you as the grantee would then send that information by email back to your grant manager. They can then upload whatever information is needed into the system from their end.
Okay, great. Next question, what attachments are expected for Formula Award progress reports? Maybe someone from the program office can speak to that question.
Hi, this is Alan. If this is a Coverdell Award, there should be a question set. It may have not been uploaded yet, where you would answer the question set in the performance measurement tab. For CBER grantees, they are required to submit supporting documentation along with the PMT report.
Great, thanks, Alan. Okay, looks like folks are interested to know, can you reopen a previously submitted performance report? And if so, can that also be applied to FFRs? Are you able to open and resubmit FFRs?
Yes to both. You can, I'm sorry, no, there's no change request possible to a performance report. For the FFR, there is a reopen option. You can reopen and adjust the information on an FFR and resubmit. The caveat to that is you can do that until you submit the next FFR. So, if your FFR was submitted, for instance, on March 30th, and your next FFR is not due till June 30th, you can reopen and resubmit that FFR all the way up until June 30th. But when you submit the next one, then the first one can no longer be updated.
Great. All right.
Lisa,
Cindy, are
this
you
is
seeing?
Jennifer,
go ahead,
just
Alan.
one
Yeah.
clarification. Just to clarify, the grantee will be able to open up the FFR and do the changes. The grant managers and OCFO cannot change requests or make those changes for the grantee.
That is correct. Yeah.
And this is Kathy.
Cindy,
I just wanted to chime in with one more point of clarification on editing a submitted performance report. Everything that's been said is accurate in terms of we cannot change request a performance report once it's been submitted in JustGrants. But if the person was asking whether or not it's possible to edit a PMT report, you would be able to go back into the PMT system and make the changes that you need in PMT, generate a new report, and then email it to your grant manager for update in JustGrants.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kathy. And thanks, Alan. Any additional questions, Cindy, that you're seeing in the Q&A box before I move on to resources?
Sure. There's a question about the amount of files that can be uploaded. So the question is, did they expand the amount of files that can be uploaded? I was only able to add 5 during my past performance report.
So my understanding is that there should be no limit to the number of files that you can upload. However, each individual file is limited to 25 megabytes.
And that was all I had. I just want to address something I think that's come up a couple of times. For users that need support and are going to reach out to user support, is it also helpful, from what I'm gathering, that they also contact their grant manager and just let them know that they're having the issue, so that they have the support that they need?
This is Kathy. I'll chime in and say, sure, it's helpful to copy us, to copy your grant manager so that we're aware. And if there's anything that we can see to offer advice on or potential solutions for, we're happy to do that. Unfortunately, there will often be times where there's not an action we can take on your behalf or not something we can do to resolve the problem for you, in which case we would say, please do reach out to the help desk if you haven't yet.
Thanks, Kathy. This is Alan. Also, one note on when uploading documents into the system, there is a character limit on the name of the document. So the shorter the name of the file, the better that the system will allow the upload of the document.
Great. So I'd like to go ahead and just share a few resources that will be helpful. These are really great questions. We appreciate you sharing those in the Q&A text box, and we hope that you found that those answers were helpful. We'll go to the next screen here. As we've mentioned here a few times on the call, there is a user self-support website that you can refer to for tutorial videos, step-by-step guides, FAQ help documents, as well as contact information for a help desk. So you can certainly reach out, and I would bookmark this page because this is a really great page to have as a resource as you're navigating through JustGrants. And I will go ahead and put the link in the chat for you all to have. We did mention here that we do have user support. And on the screen, you'll see the user support email address as well as phone number. We'll go to the next slide. You can contact our technical support team at justgrants.support@usdoj.gov or by phone at 833-872-5175. They do have hours Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as weekend and federal holiday hours from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. So we certainly would recommend, if you are having those technical difficulties with your account or you're not able to navigate through the system, as we've mentioned here, having some issues, please reach out to our technical support team. All right, go to the next slide. If you are reaching out to the technical support team, there are a few things that may be helpful to have handy to speed up your request. This is a list of items that you may want to have, but please provide as much detail as possible about the task that you're trying to accomplish. The more specific information that you provide, the better it is for us to kind of expedite and address your issues that you're encountering in the system. And then last up, in order to stay up to date on the latest information related to Just Grants, we suggest that you sign up for any news and updates. You can do this from the support page from the link that we have listed at the bottom of the screen. We also have a grant life management lifecycle that's available to help you get through the Just Grant system. And as I mentioned, that provides you with tutorials, e-learning videos, and step-by-step guides of how to navigate the system. You can certainly reach out to our Just Grant support team, our training support team, if you have training-related questions at justgrants.trainingsupport@usdoj.gov. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Andrea to close us out for today's session.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you to your team for this really great presentation on Just Grants. I know we covered a lot of material, and I know some of the material went very quickly. As a reminder, we are recording this, or we did record this for your future reference, and we'll send the link via the original email chain that provided the link to this training today. I want to thank you again so much for your time. And Jennifer, if you don't mind switching back to the slide that has all of the contact information, just so we can end on that. It's pretty early on in the webinar. Or is Lisa managing the webinar?
Yep, I'm moving it backwards. I'll have it here in a moment.
All right, thank you. And we'll finish up with the contact information so you can copy down our email addresses and our phone numbers so you can reach out to us if you run into any hurdles with your grants. Again, reach out to your grant managers if you have any issues with your projects or with any of your submitting any of the changes in Just Grants. We're here to help you. And again, the phone numbers and email addresses will be there. Thank you again so much for your time, and this concludes the webinar.